Good morning, welcome everybody, or maybe good afternoon. Today we're going to be going over the reproductive system. This ed puzzle is what you will use for your first bullet point, and then you'll continue on to your other two activities for today. So here we go, looking at our reproductive system. What you need to know is that the reproductive system is in control of our what we call sexual reproduction, okay? It is partnered with the endocrine system in doing this. And my sweet friends, when we are talking about reproduction, we're talking about making human babies, okay? So reproducing of our species, having new offspring. So that is our goal here. The endocrine system, remember, those are our hormones, and so those come into play as well. Whenever we're talking about humans, we're looking at sexual reproduction because that is how humans reproduce. Versus how we looked at plants such as flowers, how they reproduced asexually. So for sexual reproduction, you need the mom and you need a dad, and that's because you have to have an egg and a sperm. The egg comes from females and sperm comes from males. What happens is the egg and the sperm have to come together. So what you can see in this picture here, this represents an egg, and so we'll see a video later on. Millions of sperm have to swim up and try to be the first one to join with the egg. And what happens is the egg will actually let the sperm pass through its cell wall or its cell membrane, and then they can be what we call fertilized. This is the process of fertilization when the egg and the sperm come together. So whenever we look at this, remember we're looking at a male sex cell coming up with the female sex cell. So the female sex cell is the egg and the male sex cell is the sperm. When we look at males and the organs and body parts, we're going to focus on testes. Testes is plural for testicle. And what they do is they create sperm and testosterone. So testosterone is the male hormone. And remember, sperm is the male sex cell. So men or males have two testicles, and they each do the same job of creating sperm and testosterone. The other thing that we look at is the penis, and that is how urine and sperm both leave the body. So what you can see in this diagram is the testicles have a tube that connects to the penis at the same place where the bladder connects. And so there's actually a small, kind of like a door that the penis can, it is involuntary. So remember, that's one of those movements that we don't purposely choose. Our body chooses for us. And so that way only urine is passing or only semen is passing from the penis at one time. It won't be both. So let's look at semen. I want to show you something first. Notice we've been talking about sperm this whole time. So sperm is the actual male sex cell. Semen is the fluid that mixes with the sperm to leave the penis, okay? So what it does is the sperm are found in semen. So the semen is made up of just a fluid that helps the sperm leave. The sperm then race each other to meet the egg, like you can see below. Each of these little wiggling tails is a sperm, and the two circles are eggs. So you can see it's kind of difficult for the sperm to get in, but how it works is only one sperm will be able to get through the egg's doors. So only one sperm will be able to fertilize this egg. The sperm gives the DNA from the male and the egg gives the DNA from the female. So remember how we looked at genetics and you get 50% from both parents? That's because you have one egg from your mother and one sperm from your father. So that makes up your 50% of your DNA. The other important thing is your sex is determined by the sperm. So humans have 46 chromosomes. Remember, chromosomes are those X's that hold our DNA tight. You have 23 from your dad and 23 from your mom. That's how you get 46. So every egg, all eggs ever, have the X chromosome. X represents females. Sperm could have an X or a Y chromosome. So this is what determines the sex of the fetus, or the sex of what will be the baby. So males have what we call an XY. Males get one of each letter, and that's how you become a boy, is you have the XY chromosome. Now, females have two X's, so they have an XX chromosome. So whatever sperm fertilizes the egg determines the sex. All eggs are X. So if a sperm is a Y, it becomes a boy. If a sperm is an X, it becomes a girl. Testosterone. So this is the male hormone, but freeze. Both males and females have testosterone. Males have a lot more of it though. Testosterone is very important when it comes to puberty for boys. It controls hair growth, muscle growth. This can also control moodiness and anger. Whenever you hear of illegal steroids or growth hormone, this is what people are using. They're putting more testosterone in their body when they shouldn't. So your body makes testosterone for you. This is what starts your process of puberty, what helps your muscles grow, and what helps make that transition into the adult body. Now, that was the male hormone. Notice there's only one of them. Females have two. So first one we have is estrogen, but same situation. Males and females have it, but females have more of it. Estrogen is important for puberty in females. So this impacts the beginning of puberty. This impacts breast development as well as the beginning of the menstrual cycle. On the flip side, we have progesterone. Blah, 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 blah. You ready for that one again? Progesterone. So this one, the P kind of gives you a hint. It's for the pregnancy hormone. Both males and females have this hormone too, but females have way more of it. You'll notice progesterone is the pregnancy hormone. So whenever women are pregnant, progesterone increases because they're pregnant. And so this can lead to, your pregnancy moodiness, your mood swings, your hunger cravings. But this can also is positive in that it's needed for pregnancy, so it helps aid the development of the woman's body for the fetus. Additionally, progesterone is the hormone that pops positive on a pregnancy test. So you might have heard of a pregnancy test where the woman has to pee on the stick. And so what that test is doing is testing how much hormones are in her body. And one of those hormones is progesterone. So once a woman is pregnant, her progesterone increases pretty fast. And that's how the tests are able to pick it up. Now let's look at the female body parts. First, we have what we call our ovaries, okay? So ovaries create eggs and the female hormone estrogen. So remember, take a step back. Remember, I'm going to show you here. So looking at our males, they have testicles that hold the sperm and testosterone, and then the penis where it leaves the body, okay? Notice that males have two testes, right? So now we can look at the female body parts and see number one is ovaries. 1, 2. Females also have two ovaries, okay? So it's the same concept where sperm is held within the testicles and so is testosterone made. So it's the same thing for ovaries. Eggs are held here and there's estrogen made. Here's the difference. Ovaries hold the eggs that females are born with. Females are born with all the eggs they'll ever have. Testicles are constantly growing and creating new sperm, but ovaries are just holding the eggs as they grow. They are not making new eggs, okay? This means approximately 300,000 eggs are what's left alive once a female hits puberty. That's how many eggs that she has left. Only about 400 to 500 of them will ever actually leave the body. The others will end up staying and dying in there as she gets older. This is what we will use to represent the egg. That's basically what they look like, just a smaller version. So ovaries is our first body part. Body part 2 for females are what we call the fallopian tubes, and that's number 2. They have these little finger-looking things on the bottom. So the ovary and the fallopian tube are not connected, but rather the ovary sits here and the tube has these fingers. So when the ovary pushes the egg out, the fingers can kind of pull it in and move it forward. So that way the body parts are working together. So in this tube, it connects from the ovary to the remainder of the uterus. This tube is commonly where fertilization happens. So where the egg meets the sperm have to travel all the way up and into the tube to find where the egg will be. The third one is the uterus. So this is really important, and I want you to use your listening ears. Females have another organ that males do not have, called the uterus. The uterus is a muscular organ, and what it does is this is where the baby grows. So I know we always hear and we always talk about it of babies grow in mommy's tummies, right? So below the stomach in females, there is this organ called the uterus. And so that's why it looks like babies grow from a stomach, is because the uterus is so close to where the stomach is. But this is where the baby will grow. So if the egg is fertilized over here in the tube, looking at my red pointer, if the egg is fertilized in here, it travels down to the middle part, which this is what represents the uterus. This is where the baby would grow. The egg actually attaches itself to the uterus into the walls so that it holds on tight and will stay there while it grows. The last body part we're going to look at is number 4, and this is the actual vagina. And I want you to notice that this is the birth canal, okay? So this is the organ that delivers the baby. So the opening right here that connects the vagina to the uterus is actually called the cervix. So each different part has a specific name. So the uterus is what holds the baby. The cervix is the door that keeps the baby in. The cervix, this part here, it does open up for birth. So that's whenever you hear how dilated a woman is during birth, is how far has the cervix opened for the baby. And then finally, the vagina is the actual canal or the actual body part that the baby comes out of, okay? Looking at our hormones again, remember hormones are the chemical messages our body uses to communicate. So our ovaries, they are there to hold our eggs. They assist in sexual maturity, and that is what we call puberty. And then they help with the menstrual cycle, which we'll talk about next. Remember, the female hormones are estrogen and progesterone. Looking at males, they have testes or testicles, which produce sperm, also sexual maturity, which is puberty. And then for looking at males, they also maintain healthy levels of bone and muscle mass. So remember, your testosterone is the hormone that helps your muscles grow, which is why that impacts here for males. So now let's talk about the menstrual cycle. This is commonly known as a period. So in the menstrual cycle, once a month, one ovary releases an egg. The ovaries take turns typically, so you might have the left ovary 1 month, the right ovary 1 month, but it isn't always a back and forth. It might be this one takes 2 months, this one takes 1 month, but it's only one ovary working per month to release an egg. When the egg's released, that is the process of ovulation. So ovulation is the egg releasing. Typically, one egg is released, okay? But it happens that more eggs are released. If 2 eggs are released, you could have twins. If 3 eggs are released, you could have triplets. That is typically something that is genetic, or it is pretty rare. Most people have 1 egg released during ovulation. Once it's released, it can either be fertilized by the sperm. So remember, fertilized in the fallopian tube, and then it will attach itself to the uterus. And then we're going to learn this word fetus. So we call it a baby once it's been born, but while it's still in the uterus, we call it a fetus. But if the egg is not fertilized by sperm, meaning sperm does not meet the egg, then after about a day, the body can tell that it wasn't fertilized, and the body moves forward in the menstrual cycle. So this is a photo that shows you the steps. We're going to start over here. So the egg matures. So your ovaries have, like we said, about 300,000 eggs. And they have to mature. So each egg is still growing. And once it has reached its full growth, it is mature. So it gets released from the ovary into the fallopian tube. At the same time, what is happening in the uterus is we call this endometrium, and that's the lining of the uterus. So the top layer of the uterus develops blood, okay? What it's doing is preparing for a baby. So here the egg's released. So the uterus knows, hey, we got an egg coming. This one could be fertilized, could be a fetus. And it gets overexcited and starts preparing. So it lines the uterus with blood because it'll give it to the baby if the baby if there is a baby, if the egg is fertilized. So that would be really important for the baby's development. But if the egg's not fertilized, the endometrium, that blood, is shed and the body gets rid of it. Says, okay, there's no fetus. I understand. I'll clean up my mess. We'll try again next month. So the cleaning up, that's what causes the period. The blood leaving the body through the vaginal canal is the lining of the uterus leaving the body because there was no fetus. This entire cycle takes approximately 28 days. The bleeding part lasts approximately 7 days. And then the remainder of the 21 days is for ovulation, your body producing the lining, and then your body, ovulating. Thank you. So that is there. And then we get to pregnancy. If the egg is fertilized by the sperm, then it starts to become a fetus. So remember, we call it a fetus until it's been born. The fertilized egg attaches itself to the uterus where the fetus will grow, and only females have a uterus. Remember that. This is why males can't have babies, is because they don't have a uterus or ovaries or a vaginal canal. They don't have the body parts for it. Just like females do, but females cannot impregnate someone because they don't have sperm or testicles. So this is why we look at the difference between the reproductive systems. Looking further at pregnancy, while attached to the uterus, the fetus grows. So look over here. This represents the fetus. It is surrounded in a sac of fluid, and it's attached to the mother through the umbilical cord. So we all have belly buttons, right? So if you look here at the baby, you can see this cord coming up from where its belly button will be. This is attaching to this here, and this entire thing represents the uterus. So this umbilical cord is very important because it gets attached to what we call the placenta. So the umbilical cord attaches to where your belly button goes and connects to the placenta. Now, what's a placenta, you say? Wow. Females grow the placenta only during pregnancy. It is a new organ that is temporary. So the placenta is how the fetus receives nutrients and oxygen from the mom. So if you look here, how it works is the umbilical cord attaches to the fetus. The umbilical cord attaches to the placenta, okay? And the baby is in a sac of fluid. The placenta is attached to the uterus. The placenta provides the oxygen and nutrients through the umbilical cord to the baby. So this is how they're getting what they need to survive while they're floating in the liquid. When the baby is born, the placenta also has to be birthed as well. So if a woman gives birth naturally, she has to birth the placenta. If it is a C-section, the doctors remove the placenta. So whenever you talk about cord cutting, or you hear that on, movies or TV shows, that's what they're talking about, is cutting the umbilical cord to cut the baby so it's no longer attached to the placenta. During pregnancy, a female's body makes some really big changes, okay? This can be different from each mom, and there's also different behaviors that you have choices in as a pregnant woman. The food and drinks that you choose not only impact you, but also your growing fetus. So this is why it's very important to not only focus on healthy foods, but avoiding certain foods. So whenever a woman is pregnant, We focus a lot on eating healthy foods and having your vitamins, but did you know you're supposed to avoid things? You're really not supposed to have caffeine or coffee or soda. You have to stop drinking alcohol or smoking cigarettes. There's certain medications you can't take. And then there's weird things that you would never think of that are dangerous if you're pregnant, such as eating sushi. Or certain types of cheeses can be dangerous. So it's very important to be very focused when you're a pregnant woman. Additionally, their body changes quite a bit. So women, as you notice, gain weight during pregnancy. Typically, they gain 25 to 35 pounds. You'll notice that it might be harder for a pregnant woman to walk, and that's because their center of gravity changes as they gain more weight in one area of their body. Blood flow can change just due to hormones, so different parts of your body might be uncomfortable while you're pregnant. And then there are different ways that your body changes because your organs get pushed around. So looking here at inside the body, you can see with the fetus, it pushes all of the organs up and around. So that's what can lead to it being a little uncomfortable. Finally, I want to talk about gestation. So the word gestation means the process of growing the fetus. So humans gestate or carry their baby for 10 months. Wait a second, 10 months? Yes, 10 months. This means there's 40 weeks of pregnancy, okay? We hear 9 months a lot. And that's just because not everybody makes it to 10 months, okay? It is not dangerous just because your baby doesn't make it to 10 months gestation. It can still be perfectly safe. Now, when we're looking at babies born before 37 weeks pregnant, so 37 weeks pregnant is not quite 9 months. It's about 8.5 months. So before that time, if the baby is born, they're what we call premature, okay? And so what that means is they just need some extra help at the hospital. Every baby is different. Some babies who are premature don't need any extra help. Some babies who are premature have to stay in the hospital a little while. We focus on gestation, so the baby being in the uterus for 10 months, because that's how long it takes for the baby to fully develop. So whenever a baby is born too early, they might stay in the hospital for extra help because parts of their body are still developing. But like we said, every baby is different and it's impacted by genetics as well. So I hope you guys learned a lot and continue on with your bullet points.